Here's a short recap of part 4 of the Pong miniseries. We first created a widget blueprint called HUD, and we added 4 elements to it. The first was a simple canvas panel, and then inside the canvas panel we added a rich text block. Now, for the rich text block, we anchored it center screen, and then after that we added some positioning and size, and then we added a simple line text element. To be able to get it to actually wrap around like this, you have to first justify its center, and then under the wrapping settings you have to enable auto wrap text, give a value of 1 for the wrap text at, and then for the wrapping policy under advanced, you have to set it to allow per character wrapping. Once you've done that, we can then define a text style set. From here, you can create a new data table, and then once you open that data table up, you can add as many rows as you want. Each row can be a different and unique text style. For this prototype, we only added 1 simple row. No matter how many rows you have, just make sure to rename one of them to be default, otherwise it will not work. Once we've renamed it, we then basically added a simple text style. I just picked a white text, I set a size, and I set my font to Roboto. Then I saved my data table, and then if you head back to your widget blueprint, you simply set the text style set to use that data table, and then you compile, and then it'll actually update your widget. Once we've done that, we then created simple text blocks, one called player1 score, and the other one called player2 score. The important call out here is that you want to make sure you check the box for is variable, because this is going to be what we actually pass in from the game manager to update the score value. Obviously we set one anchor to be left and the other one to be right, and we gave it some sizing, and then the default text I just set to null. It doesn't really matter what you set here, as it's going to be replaced by what comes from the game manager later. With our widget set up, we then went to the graph editor, and we created 2 custom events. One was the set score event, which will update the score when the game starts, and then the second one was the update score, which will basically be called every time a player scores a goal. In each custom event, you want to define 2 inputs. In this case, I titled mine player1 score, and the other one player2 score. This is what allows us to pass in some value from an external source. In this example, it'll be from our game manager, and we can pass that through the custom event into whatever functions we want. In this particular example, I'm getting a reference to the player1 variable and the player2 variable, and I'm calling the function setText. I then pass in the integer into that text value, and it automatically converts it to a string. And we do the same thing for the update score event. With that set and with that done, the last thing we had to do was update the game manager. There were 2 changes we made to the game manager. One was in the event begin play. We simply had to call the function to create the widget. In this case, we did the HUD widget that we just created. We then stored that as a reference variable that we can use later. We then added the add to viewport so we can see it on the screen. And then we pulled off the blue pin and we called the custom event that we set up in the widget called setScore. This is where we were able to pass in the variables for player 1 and player 2 into that custom event. Then the last change we made was in the score events. Before we were just simply calling a print string, so we replaced the print strings with the update score events we created on the widget. So basically after we increment each variable, we then call this function to update the scores on the HUDs. And just like that, we've created a simple heads-up display to leverage our game manager to display the player's scores.